Good evening, ladies, gentlefers, and my lovely NBs. We are here live in Las Vegas for the 2024 FBA Draft. My name is Marcus Baylor, and to my right is Ryan Eastman. How are you doing tonight?
Doing excellent, Marcus. Doing excellent. We are here again, the start of the FBA season for real. For 48 players, 24 of them tonight will be drafted, and they'll end up on their new teams. And it's an exciting night for everyone. Uh, you know, last year we had some shenanigans. I'm expecting more shenanigans here tonight.
Oh yes, plenty of shenanigans to go around for a variety of teams, willing and dealing, trying to make sure they get the best fit for their respective team for the upcoming year. And I just gotta say, it's an exciting time for all of these young players to really finally hear their name and be officially part of this league and get into their first step in the FBA.
Yeah, and I can't wait to see as we're gonna cut down live to the stage where Raymond Stevens gonna give the Seaver's gonna give his opening statement.
Good evening, basketball fans from around the world. Welcome to the most anticipated night in the sport, Draft Night. Tonight, we'll celebrate the incredible talent, dedication, and resilience of athletes who've spent years honing their craft, chasing their dreams, and making sacrifices to reach this moment. Tonight, futures will change, careers will begin, and teams will lay the foundations for greatness. A little housekeeping for all those tuning in and for teams getting ready to make their selections. You will have 5 minutes in round one to make your pick. Once your team has been announced to be on the clock, the timer starts. You will be contacted by the FBA Deputy Commissioner Ross Fieldstaff. If you do not respond or do you not tell us your selection by the end of the 5 minute time slot, we will go based off your submitted draft board. Should a trade take place involving the current pick, the clock will reset to 3 minutes for the new team. With that, let's get ready to witness history in the making as we officially begin the 2024 FBA Draft. Winnipeg Voyagers, you are on the clock, and Ross Fieldstaff will be back to announce their selection.
Well, Marcus, Winnipeg on the clock.
Yep, indeedy. And I gotta say, the Winnipeg has a lot of big decisions coming up for them in this upcoming season, as they do have a couple of retirements that are noticeable on their team.
Yeah, and I mean, I joked about when you were talking about the combine. I expect a big center to go here just because we need a replacement for DQ. I don't see DQ coming back as a starting role. They missed out
Mhm.
last year of having a possible Bear join the team, but there are plenty of centers in this draft that could be a big grab. I mean, obviously, looking at the top five, you have Matilda Shanahan, Holly Ann Cotton, Sebastian Zervas, and even at number six, Andrea Kazanishi. The four
Yeah.
centers up there. You could take your pick. You literally have your pick.
Oh yeah. I mean, we already know that last year was very rich with centers, but this year is no different. And considering the fact that like both teams last year that made it to the finals did bank on the centers that they picked up this year to really make a major impact, and both of them really did. And it's going to be interesting if with how it's a little bit of a copycat league, trying to see if we can like try and pick the minds of each other and understand how they're able to get to where they get. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of these teams would be willing to risk it. And Winnipeg is certainly a team that can start that run very quickly.
Yeah, that they can. So, I mean, who do you have then going number one here with Winnipeg on the clock?
I mean, you got to go for the best available here. As Winnipeg was able to get a little bit lucky here in the FBA draft lottery, upping all the way up to number one, and with all of these prime picks, you might as well go for the best available, which is ironically the team of need as well with Matilda. So I think that with that combination, you can't really go for any other decision.
I mean, it's a fair assessment. Matilda coming out of, not going to be the Great White Bear, but could be the Great White Pyrenees. Uh, from North Star University.
Mhm.
But actually, we're going to cut down to the stage. It looks like field staff is coming on stage, and he does not have an envelope.
We have had a little change of plans this evening. The Queen's Pride has traded Tyrone Gale to the Winnipeg Voyagers in exchange for the first-round pick of the 2024-2025 FBA Draft. The Queen's Pride is now on the clock.
All right. We're already starting off strong with a wild trade in the beginning of this draft. Holy. Right.
They have the fourth pick.
I'm just all right. I'm just scrambling notes now, just trying to get everything together for this nice little shakeup that we get. So that's pretty huge. I think that there's a particular player that they really like, which seems to be Matilda most likely. I have to look at their draft to make sure that they actually need a center, which I believe that they do.
I mean, they have Alan Clemens going in the free agency, so I mean maybe, but I'd imagine they bring him back. I guess they need a guard now that they just got rid of Tyrone Gale. But
100%.
Barlow at 4, like I mean, he might still be there at 4. Are they worried about Hank Martin going off the board early? I mean,
it's a huge risk for sure, and with Queens making such a huge jump in the early goings, it really kind of goes to the question as to like they're really trying to desperate to get out of the basement, which they have been for a well about a decade now at this point. They have never really been able to go over the hump and finally make it to the playoffs. So I think this is just a huge move to try and get some kind of shakeup going, because a lot of the times they've tried to reevaluate, move pieces, and try to figure out what they want to do here. But I think now they're just like, all right, we might as well just go all in and try and go for a major piece. But it's going to be something huge. I mean, I can understand why they want to go ahead and trade away Gale, because he is going to be $16 million kind of freed up from that alone. So that's a pretty huge thing, but that's going to be a huge piece they're going to have to find a way to replace.
I mean, it is. And then, they already traded for Tino. The sign and trade, getting rid of Evan Cross, picking up Tino. Sure, maybe they want him to slide in at shooting guard. So they kind of maybe looking for point guard, or like you said, the 16 million cap space they just generated might give them an opportunity to go for a free agent and make a big push. But you have to look at, they have a 4th overall pick still. It's not like they got rid of it.
Yeah.
I could understand if they traded back a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
Or jumped up from 4 to 1, and then Winnipeg moved because Winnipeg could have any center at 4 if they really wanted.
In all honesty, this kind of reminds me of what the Plymouth Tappers did a few years, quite a while ago, when they basically had pretty much a clean slate for the most part, outside of a couple of players here and there. You can't really say that too much with Queens still having quite a few players on their on the contract still, but it just seems like that they are ready to go ahead and get 2 major pieces to try and kick things off very quickly.
Well, speaking of, field staff is coming to the stage, and this time he has an envelope. Thank God, I could not handle another draft first overall getting traded after being traded once.
For the first pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Queen's Pride have selected Lumari Colquhoun.
And with that, oh wow, and Pittsburgh's on the clock, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, so they're automatically replacing Tyrone Gale with the first overall pick with Lumari, and it just seems like this could be the best of both worlds. Having to go ahead and get a player that is a little bit scarce here. Well, the forwards aren't really scarce, but certainly
he would be gone by 4. I think it's fair. I think to get him here.
Yeah. It will be gone by the time that they would get to pick again, I would assume. Especially with like Pittsburgh and Williamsburg on the fray. And oh man, the crazy thing about this is the second time in the row Tyrone Gale has been drafted in the draft, I believe. 'Cause he was
Traded in the
drafted.
draft, yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he was traded last year too from Las Vegas to Queens. So it's kind of seems to be a glorified journeyman position because you just don't want to hear that on draft
Well,
night.
he is desired enough that teams are willing to make major trades for him. But the cost of having him is so high right now that
Mhm.
it can be a challenge for a team trying to rebuild. But congratulations, uh, Lamari, the Seagull out of Midwest Avian University, going #1 overall here. And we'll see who your playing partner will be in a few picks. But let's jump on over to Pittsburgh now that we've gotten
Yeah.
some craziness out of here early. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So I guess looking over into Pittsburgh, I mean, Pittsburgh, it's definitely a little bit of a mystery with here because they kind of have been up and down throughout the recent years in Pittsburgh. Sometimes they're able to make it into the playoffs and maybe make it a game or make it a series for whatever opponent they decide to go up against. But they really haven't been able to go over that hump, it seems like. And they do have a couple of pieces where they are looking to possibly fill in, but I guess it just remains to be seen if they want to go ahead and try and add more to the bigs percentage because I know they have Marker Warrior
they have
locked in for
Timothy
the next couple of
Svingard
years.
and Desdemona Iverson, which is why I said at the combine I don't think Pittsburgh will go big here just because they've got 3 locked
Yeah.
up.
Hmm.
I could see them going a guard here. I think Ewan could come off the board here. Barlow, I don't see them picking a center, and this is why I said I wasn't expecting Queens to be the one that caused problems. I expected Winnipeg to pick the one center, and then we'd go 5 picks without one. And I'm expecting here that we're going to see a guard come off the board. My bet is Barlow. The next after him would be Martin. I could see them
Hmm.
going there, but I don't see them dipping all the way down to Frederick Alexander at 13, at number 2 with the second overall pick. Maybe they could trade back if they wanted to, if that was who they were after. Um, but I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I'm still recalibrating after the
No,
trade
I get,
already.
yeah, I get you. I completely understand. It's not it's not something that we were expecting to happen in the first pick this year, but it happens. I can definitely see this being the case. Aaron Barlow does make a lot of sense. It's not that big of a reach since we already got a forward off the board. You're just 2 slots higher in this case. So going for Evan Barlow does make a lot of sense, especially with giving a good enough partner for Garland because I know that that's what they've been looking for in a while. Blake Evans hasn't really worked out for them because that was another player that they picked high a couple of years ago. So they're just trying to find that number 2 guard that they can really kind of put this young core together.
Yes, and it looks like the pick is in. Let's head on down to the stage.
For the second pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, Pittsburgh have selected Henry Martin, a hair guard from the London Jets in the EFBL. Next up, Williamsburg, you are on the clock.
Well. They must have saw something they really liked this past Olympics series with the Martin going #2 here.
Yeah, certainly was a little bit lower, but he was very impressive over there in the Olympics. And that's the one thing we also got to keep a note of because of the Olympics that happened recently. A lot of eyes are going to be on a lot of our international players as well. And it just seems like Pittsburgh was very impressed with Henry being that next fur up to really be that partner for Garland. And hopefully that'll be a good tandem for them to really kind of go for the long run because we had plenty, as we know throughout the FBA, plenty of guard duos that have been able to take over the league a little bit to that led them to a championship.
Yeah, and obviously Hank, has been a professional with the London Jets for 2 seasons now, so he has some experience in that regard. But at 18 years old, very young, and that you're looking forward to a long career, hopefully, and that might be what Pitt's aiming for is youth with some of that extra experience that a lot of the college players don't have by comparison. So I can understand the selection here, but it's making it difficult in terms of centers coming off the board, as we've already pulled out. With 4 in the top 6, we have pulled exactly 0 after the first 2 picks. So looking on to Williamsburg, do they break the streak and pick up a center here?
Possibly. I mean, like going over into who they have under contract right now. The most noticeable is Kendrick Cummins, but I wouldn't consider them like a high quality starter in the Big Fur area, and it does play a little bit more power forward than center. They do have a couple of centers coming in that are going into free agency as well. O'Malley being one of the more notable ones that I'm looking at the moment. So I could definitely see them going for this. And plus, they have a lot of cap space available too. So this is a team I'm really looking to possibly make a major shakeup depending on what they want to do here.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little concerned because I kind of would expect them to want to bring back Marshall, the Orca, who they drafted 2 years ago out of North Star. Obviously, I think there's some talk in the free agency market of the Orca being pursued by multiple teams. They picked up Tiana Linwood last year with a high pick, so in terms of who can complement her, maybe go for a guard. Barlow on the board. Obviously, Vera Latiera, a veteran player that they could play behind for one season and develop. But it's if you pick a center here, I almost feel like you're conceding that you're going to lose Marshall possibly, unless you're planning on demoting Kendrick Kaminsky back to the bench potentially.
Yeah, that's also very true. With the fact that Marshall's going into free agency as well, it just really depends on what Williamsburg wants to do because they have been more so a middle of the pack team. They haven't really made any significant noise when they do make it to the playoffs, and that's a little bit like less than others compared to the recency that we've had in this league. So I wouldn't be surprised that Williamsburg could be aiming to get a possible reset because they've had like the same core for the longest time, and they're just now deciding to shut off um a lot of it for the most part when it comes to like what we used to known as like the Williamsburg Minute Women, as we like to joke around over here in the FBA. But now we're getting into a point where they're trying to get the next generation going for the long run.
Yeah, and it looks like the pick is in. Let's cut on down to the stage for field staff.
For the third round of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Williamsburg Minutemen have selected Matilda Shanahan, a Giant Pyrenees dog center from North Star University. Up next, the Queen's Pride. You are once again on the clock.
Well, they have gone center once. Finally center off the board.
Yes.
I would say once again, it's been 2 years since they last went center. It brings in some questions, especially, Marshall also being from North Star, now being potentially replaced by another North Star player.
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of one of those things with when it comes to business because like I'm sure that the two of them have played together before in North Star University, depending how long each of these players have been playing for that college. But when you're here in the FBA, it's a completely clean slate. You are going to be judged based on your performance in recent years, and it's a lot of fast-paced leagues. And you don't feel like that you fit into their vision as to what they want for their team, then they'll probably go elsewhere. And this could potentially be a pretty big example of that.
Well,
Now, obviously, in this situation with Matilda being like the best player on the board overall, I can't necessarily blame them going this route.
and I will say it is possible that they are using this as an opportunity to actually try and coax back Marshall by saying, "Hey, do you want to play with your teammate again?" And
Mm.
play a power forward center kind of role between either the rookie or Marshall, and demote Kendrick back to being a six fur kind of snow leopard coming off the bench.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. It's certainly a possibility for Williamsburg do you think they'll probably hoard a lot of the North Star the upcoming North Star?
I mean, they could if they really wanted to. But let's jump on over to Queens, who broke us a little bit earlier tonight.
Yes, they did. That's an understatement.
They now have the 4th overall pick, and looking at again, I don't know who they'd select here. They've picked a forward. They could theoretically pick Barlow if they're shocked that he's still there.
Mhm.
If that is their target to kind of replace Evan Cross, I could see them picking a center. Holly
Yeah.
Ann Cotton is on the board still.
I mean, yeah, because again, Queens is kind of a little bit trying to find some kind of step to really get them into playoff contention because that's really been what they've been searching for the longest time. And I wouldn't be surprised if they do decide to go big here because while yes, possibly getting another guard potentially would be fun to have in this case just to continue to match up with a more athletic team going into the perimeter. But you do need to have that anchor. And I don't think that the Pride have really found that anchor for the longest time. They've been searching for quite a while. And so I would be interested to see if they're going to do that because, it remains to be seen how they feel about Alan Clemens as well as Tucker Iverson. I know that Tucker does have one more year left on his deal, but, there's a lot left to be admired here for the Pride. So I wouldn't really be surprised if they said, you know what, we'll go ahead and try and see if we can find that solidified piece to be able to guard the rim in this juncture.
I mean, it wouldn't be a terrible idea. Like you said, there's a couple. They literally have their pick. They go for the moth. They go for the jackal. They go for the rabbit. Uh, if they really want to, they could go even further down. There's a lot of centers on the board, and only one has been taken. And it looks like the pick might be in. Let's cut down to the stage.
For the 4th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Queen's Pride have selected Carly Diggs, a Fennec Fox guard from Vanderbarn. Up next is the Hawaii Kahunas. You are now on the clock.
All right. Well,
Queens, why do you
I'm
torture me so? Carly Diggs, ranked 17 overall. They must have seen something in Carly that made them feel with, Corey Bain still on the board, Frederick Alexander, Barlow on the board, that, that Carly Diggs must have had a heck of a pro day at the combine for them.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about this is that it's something that really goes to show that when it comes to all of the analysis that happens throughout this league, it's like some players are going to be higher than others in this board. They may come into a shock, or we get rumors or anything of that nature of a wild player getting thrown into the mix as a top 5 pick within this league. Now, this is going to be a huge gamble here, considering the fact that, as you said, there were a lot of guards still available that were ranked much higher than Carly Diggs. But this is something that they believe this is going to be a lot of pressure going to be put on them as well. So it's going to be interesting how this plays out.
Yeah, and it is. Oh my gosh, that is throwing all the boards off, and not just because. Again, my prophecy is coming true about a number of centers being picked actually in the top selections, but
Yes.
um, this definitely opens up a lot of questions now with Hawaii on the board. Let's jump on over to Hawaii because I think they're in a position that they weren't expecting to find themselves in at this pick here at 5.
Yeah, you're not wrong in any sense of the word. They made a couple of pretty major moves here, picking up Nur Iwana from the Excavators and then getting CC as well to come into Hawaii and really kind of make some noise here with the re-signing with getting them from the getting CC from the Mayors. And they really thought that they had an opportunity to possibly be a playoff team and go even further than that. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case here in this juncture. So Hawaii's kind of looking at this, looking around and seeing what they need to do. I mean, the good thing is that they got basically a clean slate. They only have only a handful of players that are still under contract, and they still have a ton of cap space available at about 50. So they can make some noise here in Hawaii if they want to go ahead and go for some big swings. I know they attempted to last year with some of the rumors. I know they tried to go for Jonathan Lawyer and it didn't work out. So it's just going to be interesting of what they think would kind of put them in that next level to really be into playoff contention.
Yeah, and I'd like to welcome Wendy O'Neill in to give her opinion on the matter, having been working with the FCAA and covering the tournament. What are your thoughts, Wendy?
Hello, hello, hello.
You're com-
Thank you again for welcoming me. Nice to meet you all.
Yeah, great to
So,
have you. What do you think of the? What do you think of Hawaii doing here? What do you think they're going to go with?
I mean, I feel like their plan is wide open of where they can go and who they can probably pick up. Personally, I feel like maybe they need someone which is a little bit more defensive minded, someone who can probably bring their I guess give them a little bit more room for their offense to still like play. So gonna go with the best that is available. Kind of feeling Holly and Cotton.
I could definitely see going with again another big uh,
Mm-hmm.
to complement. Obviously, CC probably gonna be their starter for the next 3 seasons, but I could definitely see them going there. You know, Nur has done well at the guard position, but I think they probably had hopes that Lumari would have still been on the board, or even maybe Hank Martin. But the fact that both of them are gone already, it is an interesting thing, and I think the commissioner or deputy commissioner is ready to come down to the stage to tell us just that.
For the fifth pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Hawaii Kahunas have selected Ewan Barlow, a Ceratosaurus guard from Soropsida University. Up next on the clock, the Santa Ana Spectrums.
Well, they decided to go guard here.
Well, they've been wanting to go for a partner in crime, so it's not too surprising. Here, like I said, they have tried to go for players like Lawyer in the last off season and didn't work out. So possibly trying to get one of the best guards here to really partner with Nur could be a good idea.
I do feel like Barlow is an interesting choice. Definitely brought a lot of offense in their college years. So I think Hawaii is definitely going to be a scoring monster with them on the team.
Yeah, and like you said, there's still plenty of cap space. So now that they've locked in their top draft pick, now they can probably attack free agency a little bit more aggressively now that they know what they need to target. Let's switch on over to Santa Ana and get your thoughts, Wendy. What do you think they might do here, all the way up at number 6, as they just missed out in the playoffs last year?
That was a tough time indeed. So looking through my notes here and kind of going through the list of the players that they already have on the board, it is tricky. They still do have a bit of depth with their big first. Feeling that they might go for guard would might seem like the best option, but I have a feeling that maybe they're kind of going for more of a small forward. This might kind of be, I mean, Abigail could be an interesting fit. Um, Maybe we'll reach down probably for Liam here.
It definitely could. I mean, looking at the team as a whole, uh, we've kind of it seems like Aquino might be taken over as the starting point guard. Kiara Hughes is their ride or die for the next 4 seasons. Their bigs are a little bit in question. I think Bernard Peace and Oscar Johansson are tied up for at least the next year. Bernard Peace for 2. I, I almost want to say I could see them maybe trying to draft the other St. Bernard in this draft. Brandy is available at number 12, ranked.
Oh.
Could see a
I
little
don't.
family battle in the post. Two
Oh my goodness.
Bernards.
I swear, if we have another like set of siblings on another team. Oh my god, I got enough and got enough to deal with having to talk about that over and over again. But it's certainly something to see for sure. I mean, even looking again, going up higher on the board a little bit, like going for bigs. I mean, I could see Sebastian coming into fruition to really be that big piece because Santa Ana's starting lineup is somewhat set for the most part. It's just really trying to figure out what their depth is going to be, really. And I think that like I can certainly see them possibly if they want to go and try and improve their big depth. Sebastian Zerbis is a pretty interesting option with him being more of a big for being able to play either the power forward or center position.
Yeah, and I mean the ability to stretch the 3 ball would be helpful, but Holly Ann Cotton does the same thing, and she's a bit undersized for a center, but that has not slowed her down. Her ability to play would be uh, the agileness that comes with her size could be a
Hmm.
fast-paced way of play in Santa Ana. But I think I see the pick is in. Let's jump on down to the stage.
For the 6th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Santa Ana Spectrums have selected Coco Beladova, a cross-fox swingfer from Fairview College. Are on the clock.
I think our deputy commissioner, cut out there for a second. It is the Biloxi Voodoo on the clock. As wow, another dive down into. I mean, Coco ranked 11th, not that huge of a reach, but apparently they were going for a guard this year, and she is the best available right now.
Yeah, like I said, majority of Santa Ana is just trying to figure out what they want to do depth wise, and they have plenty of directions to go for this draft. And having to go for guard here is definitely a little bit of a reach. But as you said, there aren't really a lot available in the top 10 anymore. So just going on the hint outside of it makes the most sense.
Yeah, I feel like Coco Beladova was definitely a very interesting prospect coming out of college. I don't know if this is going to be a starting situation for them, but I think they could definitely learn a lot and build off the offense from Santa Ana.
Yeah. Speaking of Marcus, you brought up earlier the Olympic experience. Obviously, Coco featured. It'll be interesting. I could see them starting right away, depending on how they go with the guard role. Obviously, as a swing for could be a starting small forward for the team. Aquino, Kiara, and then slide on over with Coco coming in as the third player. They not to say that I like the Aziz, the Cobra, kind of playing power forward. I could see them also starting at small forward. They have options, and we'll have to see how free agency strikes out to see if they do find a way for her to be a starter right away. She could
Mhm.
develop, though, easily behind on the bench for at least a year. But let's jump on over to Biloxi, a team that has 2 first-round picks this year. Or sorry, 2 first-round selections, not first picks.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting because like it seems like that's always been the case for every year that there's like at least one or two teams that have two, maybe even baffling three uh, picks coming into the draft. You're just like, oh, they're primed to try and do some kind of crazy trade up, but nope, they usually don't do that. But it's certainly interesting to see what Biloxi can do here. This is another team that's kind of been lost on the wayside a little bit, and so trying to find their footing to try and get into not only just get into the playoffs but try and make a run.
No, I heavily agree. I feel like this pick is heavily important for the Voodoo. I think that they have to go for someone who could, not to put a lot of pressure, but maybe even be like a big star for this team, just to give them that extra push to hopefully make the playoffs. My best guess for this one, I don't think it would be the best choice to go for a center or a big fur here. I'm leaning more towards Frederick Alexander.
I mean, definitely could go all the way down.
Mm,
I do question, I guess, if they want to bring back Natalie Davenport. Natalie was very good with the team, and I feel like she could continue to be really good with the team, but I don't know if their thoughts are about trying to bring her back or not.
yeah, certainly, and not to mention the fact that like they don't really have a lot of cap space available. They only have just over 20, kept in their pocket. So sure, they would love to bring Natalie Davenport back, but it just depends on the demand of her market as well. So deciding to be like, if they don't think they'll be able to bring them back with just the pocket change alone, or they don't feel like they have been able to prove that she is going to be of value to them in the not only just in the near future, but of course in the future as a whole as well. Possibly going for that just to have somebody there to start for them does make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the roster, I question their thoughts of if they're going to bring back a Tyrese or a Lee Bearquin after this
Yep,
season.
that's
So
another thing.
just let them develop maybe behind, because there are, Holly Ann. I don't think many of us expected her to be down here at 7, except for me, because remember I did say only one center would go in the top 6 picks.
And
You
you were
did say
right.
that.
You were correct.
um,
Um, yeah, but I will say here that with that being the case, having to kind of do a little bit of a mini draft and stash, having them be able to develop as they come off the bench is certainly a huge no one, especially with veterans like Lee Bergman and Tyrese Vaughn. Both have been very formidable starting bigs in this league so far, and I certainly can see them really willing to do that. But if they want to have that type of player, they would probably will have to go for more Andrea more so than Holly Ann because of her being a smaller stature comparatively to the rest of the bigs that are available. But we'll have to wait and see. I will have to look at Holly Ann carefully, considering the fact that she's already dropped so far from what her expected stock to be.
speaking of, I see field staff heading to the stage now with the envelope in hand.
For the 7th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Biloxi Voodoo have selected Holly Ann Cotton, a black Otter Rex rabbit center from Edgerton University. Up next, the Oregon Excavators are on the clock.
Well, a center off the board. Not a terrible shock if they're thinking long term, where they're
Mm-hmm.
going to go from here. Considering how much they are invested in Tyrese, 18 million, I could definitely see them not being want to try and bring him back for that much next season.
Oh no, I think he's probably going to get a significant pay cut, if not by Biloxi, but some other team for sure. Um, and I think that this makes a lot of sense here, though. It will be interesting to see what happens with them because obviously they have to see how much Lee Barraquin is going to be when it comes to next offseason as well, and how much demand Lee Barraquin has overall. Whether or not he gets higher than what he's getting paid at this moment for this year remains to be seen. But I certainly find this an interesting pick because this is certainly more of it's a different type of big, right? With the way that she plays compared to the other two. So I'm just curious on how that's going to mesh well as we get into the regular season.
Definitely. Any thoughts, Wendy, before we dive on into the Oregon swashbucklers?
I mean, I guess I shouldn't be betting on any tickets tonight. I really thought they were gonna go guard. Having Holly Ann Cotton on the team is definitely going to be interesting. I think that their experience with their 4 years in Edgerton University is definitely going to help them along the way. I think that it's just going to be a bit of a experimental process as they try to see which center and which forward really like meshes well with what the team is trying to go for. So it should be fun, and I think I wish Holly Ann the best.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind, they do have the 23rd overall pick, so I could definitely see them going guard much later on in the draft. I think had Henry Barlow not gone, I could have seen them going guard here, but because those two got picked up so early, uh, I think they were kind of, I don't want to say backed into a corner, but they had a bunch of centers staring at them in the face. If they didn't pick one and they all turned out to be good, they could be egg on their face going into the next season.
Yeah, for sure.
Uh, but let's dive on into Oregon, a team that, has a ton of free agents this year.
Yes, a majority of them also being in the
There's,
starting lineup.
yeah,
So, they can go pretty much anywhere. I know that they did. I believe the rumors are that they did offer something to Marcus Knight because, you know,
of
Marcus Knight
course.
has been a staple for that team in a very long time, but he's not getting any younger. That's something that they will have to be understanding of. And I wouldn't be too surprised if they decided to go for the future, but even then that's going to be you're going to be reaching so far at this point. With Frederick Alexander being on the board, being like the 13th best available, a little bit of a drop, but then we have to go all the way over to Corey Bain, which is the 16th. So there's definitely a couple of guards, a couple of pure guards, I should say, left in the top 24 that they can look into, but it's more so in the later half. And do you feel like that they are willing to go ahead and be willing to try and bring one of those guys in and have Marcus develop them to eventually be that next fur up to be the face of the Swashbucklers?
Well, you get Marcus, and then it's like, what do you get after that?
Mhm.
The real because they're really forward heavy right now. So getting a guard might be interesting, but the one thing I worry about is that getting this guard might leave out some other just depth in their lineup that will hurt them later in the season. But I do feel like if they're going to go guard, they're going to reach very deep. I'm gonna put my bets on. I kind of feel like this might be where Corey Bain might be kicked up.
Okay, so I will bet on anyone but Corey Bain based off of how things have gone this far. That's not fair to you. I'm sorry. There's a ton of other players. Um, I agree. I could see them going guard. I think between Corey or Frederick, those are the two options we'll see come off the board here. If maybe if they can't help themselves, they might take the two centers that are in the top six still, Sebastian or Andrea.
Yeah,
I wouldn't hate them if
Fair,
they did
fair.
it, but
yeah, I wouldn't hate it either because I mean they do have Harper still under contract as well for quite a um for a cup for the next couple of years, and of course that's the only real big that's on under contract right now. So going into the center is not like it's not a terrible play, especially considering that there are plenty of options in the big fur category to dive in for the swashbucklers as well.
That is
yes.
fair.
And with the clock running out, I see the deputy commissioner coming on stage with the pick.
For the 8th pick of the 2024 FBA draft, the Oregon Swashbucklers, have selected Theodore Turtoslavich III, a gray wolf big fur from North Carolina Wolfpack University. Up next, the Albany Alphas are on the clock.
So I said I wouldn't hate them picking a center. And I guess I have to say that because I have to continue that because they did pick a center.
They did. They did pick a center.
Just not the one I was expecting.
No, you did not.
um, but Theodore, a good pick again. They're looking for some big depth there, and it's not like they reached that far down at number 9. The 7-foot gray wolf coming out of North Carolina Wolfpack University, an opportunity to really step up. Any thoughts, Wendy, from what you saw from Theodore in the combine in the FCA tournament?
full honesty, I feel like definitely a hardworking player, nose to the grind. It will be a bit, I think, for this team. I think that they're going to ask a lot out of them. I think that they're up for the challenge, but there's definitely going to be a bit of a learning gap that I think they might have to get through, especially with this team that's really trying to reform what they are trying to be. So it will be interesting, and I do wish Theodore luck, but it will be a process.
Well, they at the very least have locked in a possible starting center if they can't get those free agents to return they wanted. Obviously, I feel like Lucijo Heitkamp is someone that they really want to bring back at the power forward slot. So maybe they're keeping that in mind when they go at this selection, just as a little backup slash to try and encourage her to come back, show that they are dedicated to get her back at the power forward slot. But let's jump on into the Albany Alphas as they find themselves the first team not in the lottery, as we've had a two centers back to back. Do we get a third?
I mean, it's possible.
Well, with this many, I
Very
guess it is
possible.
possible.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, going into the alphas, I think like one of the big questions is to how much of a cut Terry O'Toole is willing to take in order in in order to stay on the alphas and also kind of give the alphas a good enough team to contend in the playoffs. Because I mean, I'll be honest, it's kind of like a little bit wonky here for me when it comes to the alphas and where they're staying at. Because right now it's more of a Terry O'Toole and Cassius Watterson show, for the most part. Baron Kivar is not going to get any younger. He is on his last year of his deal as well. So going for a big fur could be a very interesting play here. I mean, like I said, Sebastian Service can play the power forward position if so need be as well. But if they don't really like them, there's also Leon and Brandy to look into also.
And see, Wendy, my thought here is Abigail might be a good selection because they get to play power forward or be a little bit of an insurance case if Terry O'Toole leaves to play small forward. Any thoughts on if they were to pick up Abigail here?
I think it would be very interesting just to go for a pure forward in this case. I kind of feel like Albany does need a center, though. I think this might be where Sebastian Servas does get picked up, but it would be interesting if they did go pure forward. I don't know if they're going to. I think with that, I don't know if they're going to pick up all of their players from the last season, and so that would be interesting. But I think they're going for a pure center that can maybe play the power forward role.
So are you putting your money on Sebastian then, is what you're saying?
I'm going all in.
I mean, that's the theme here. That's the theme.
uh, Marcus, remember we have limits. We're not allowed to go over our limit every day. We have a limit.
I didn't say anything. What are you talking about?
I've seen you down in the craps table.
No. Shut up.
Anyways, I do see the Albany Alphas have their pick in. Let's jump on down to the stage.
For the ninth pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Albany Alphas have selected Sebastian Zervis, a Golden Jackal Big Fur from Connecticut Canid University. Up next, Lorraine is on the clock.
Congratulations, Wendy. You have quadrupled your earnings after all your previous bets. You are back to even now.
Woo!
Woo!
That's a good feeling. But still, to talk about the pick, I think this is definitely a good pickup for the Alphas, and also just a good pickup for Sebastian. I think this is a very interesting team that they can gel into. I think I really like their playing style just throughout their career so far. I have a good feeling about this one.
Well, and like you pointed out, Kivar, that's the goal, I think, with this selection is to really look for a future replacement for him. Obviously, Kaz has been a huge factor in their defense, and he was under contract for 2 more years, so I don't see them moving on from him anytime soon. But the 7-4 Big Fur can definitely slide in at power forward if they are looking to move on from Kivar. And like you said, he's a stretch Big Fur, so he's able to get the three ball up. And with someone like if Terry does return, that adds an extra uh, wrinkle to their game plan in terms of how do you defend against Terry and Zervos shooting the three ball. But
Oh.
but now we have the fun of Lorraine having back-to-back picks.
Oh boy, oh boy! You see what I'm talking about when it comes to with teams with multiple picks that have potential to trade up, but that doesn't seem to be the case here. Now we get to talk about Lorraine extensively.
Well, it's a team that has won now their division. 3 years in a row.
hmm
Obviously,
Yeah,
Purador's Quash retiring. I'm sad to see her head off to the great slug farm that is the post FBA career. But now, what do they pick up then?
I mean, considering the fact that they do have a couple of guards that are going to be into free agency as well as quite a couple of players actually that are heading into free agency. So it really becomes to a question as to who do they want to bring back into the fray to really excuse me to really kind of continue to go on that trajectory to possibly go into the FBA finals for the first time in a while.
Hmm.
Well, I was gonna say, talking about it, we've heard, Edwin's gonna step down as captain and Anika's taking over. So, does that mean Edwin's thinking, he might be leaving after this season, may retire, who knows? In that regard, so maybe they go a big here. Obviously, Tyreek Kendricks locked in for one more season as well. So I could see them going with, a Leon Alvarez, a big fur that could take over after either of them. We could see an Abigail Cortez getting picked up here because Anika can play swing fur. She can play shooting guard. That could open up a starting spot for Abigail to slide in there.
I think that would be interesting having Abigail and Tonfo together. That would be quite the duo. I'm kind of at both here because the one player that I feel like might surprise us here will be Brandy. I kind of feel like Brandy Johannesson does have a bit of a fit on this team. That would be a bit of a difference in their play style, but they could use that drive that Brandy does bring to the team.
Yeah, that would be an interesting selection there, and I think the commissioner is ready with the pick, and we'll see maybe if he has both of them done or just one.
For the 10th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Lorraine Firestorm have selected Abigail Cortez, an Abyssinian Wildcat forward from Philadelphia Institute of Science and Technology. Lorraine, you are still on the clock.
So they did end up going with the best of, well, second best available, but the best forward available, Abigail Cortez.
That is quite interesting.
I
I
don't
think
blame
that,
them.
you're very right. I mean, you have done
Yeah.
this much longer than me. I'll give you the full credit.
I mean, it really depends on what they want to do here because, like, Anika Tonpo is a swing fur, and it depends on if they feel comfortable at putting her into more of a shooting guard position, since that slot is going to be basically a pretty big hole is going to be there with Pura deciding to retire this year, and Maria Davenport going into free agency as well as Cam too. So it just really depends on who are they willing to bring back because they don't really have a lot of cat space available. That is a big thing, and it just really depends that like yeah they're going to have to replace one of these guys in the starting lineup most likely, and what better way to do that than to fill one of those holes in guard?
I, yeah, I could
And
definitely see that going with I mean, like I said, to slide him over, and this is a great opportunity for Abigail to get us starting as a rookie. Now, back to Lorraine, talking about them. What do they do with this 11th overall pick?
I mean, like they could definitely go for a big here, or if they could if they want to, if they really want to, just double dip into the guards. Why not? Well, not double dip, but you know what I mean. Just go for a guard player as well to really kind of shore up quite a solid depth around if they do decide to slide Anika over to the shooting guard position and go ahead and bring in Abigail in as a starting small forward. That could be an interesting idea. They could potentially, like as you said, possibly find the next power forward of the future with the questions of whether or not Edwin's going to call this the swan song of his career.
God.
Excuse the pun. But those are certainly like the big things to look into. So I could definitely see Leon if they want to go that route, or if they want to go and try and shore up their guard position, go Frederick.
Your
It
thoughts,
would be
Wendy?
interesting. I mean, it would be interesting indeed. I'm still gonna go with Brandy Johannesson on this one. I feel like that would be an interesting pick to add to this team dynamic. But at the same time, I do feel like maybe they would go down to guard just to make sure that Edwin does have their final hurrah if this is what that is leaning for. So I'm gonna be stuck with two here. I'm once again gonna either choose Brandy Johannesson or maybe Frederick Alexander at this pick.
I mean, I could see them definitely going guard given how many are going to free agency right now. And it wouldn't be a bad idea to have someone uh, behind Irwin and Tyreek at least for a season in case they're not able to bring back Tyreek, for example, in free agency. I'd be shocked if they don't bring the draft back. But at the same time, he did go back into free agency after renegotiating his contract, so it could be possible. But I think the pick is in. Let's head down to the stage.
For the 11th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Lorraine Firestorm have selected Brandy Johansson, a St. Bernard Big Fur from Vanderbilt University. However, we do have a trade to announce. Seattle has done a sign-and trade of Mary Catherine O'Hara alongside for 3 years at $4 million per year to Las Vegas for Athios Lagoudakis and their 12th overall pick in tonight's draft. So Las Vegas, you are now on the clock.
Okay, we'll have to come to that in a few minutes. I want to get your thoughts on Brandy Johansson. You were 100% right, Wendy. Well, 50% right actually, because you split your bet there.
I did. Honestly, just watching Brandy, just over their college career and just kind of seeing their play style, I really felt like they were just the big fur that was really going to be the surprise pick of this draft. And I'm glad I'm right. I'm going to stop betting for now before this luck goes away. but but I think that this is a great fit for them. And yeah, I just feel like hopefully, they could really build off of this young team and um, have a great season coming up.
Any final thoughts before you head out? It's been great having you. Any final words for the fans?
I would say thank you so much for having me. I hope to, branch out to the FBA much more, but I am still happy to cover the FCAA. And for that, that is it. End of my report, and I'll see you on the court.
Well,
Thank you
hopefully
all
we'll
for
see
having
you
me.
tomorrow too,
Yeah.
as we'll have the second round still to go. But thank you so much for joining us, Wendy. Once more, we're gonna take a quick look at this draft. The trade. I have it in front of me now. Seattle receives Mary Catherine O'Hara for 3 years on a 3-year contract for $4 million per year. Las Vegas receives Atheos Lagadak. The Greek Blue Jay is who they sent, and
Mhm.
they get the 12th pick in the draft. A very interesting trade. Not who we were expecting to be on the clock.
Nope, not at all. I
After
mean,
they traded out the first round.
yeah, we were expected to call a name for them tomorrow, but hey, that what do you expect from Vegas? They do this like every year, it seems like.
Yeah.
But hey, it does work out very interesting for them being able to get back into finding their way into the first round and a pretty good spot too in the middle of the pack. Still have plenty of options in there, but it's just gonna be very curious as to do because like we've heard rumors coming out the wazoo over here in Vegas. Like they've been all over the place when it comes to possible targets in free agency.
Yes, and I'd like to go ahead and welcome in Merrick Collins, lead writer for the Clutch Time magazine, to get his opinion, maybe what he's been hearing, as he's probably a little bit more in tune with what's going on right now as we're in the booth. What's been happening tonight?
Hey, glad to be part of this. Well, watching it, I see I've missed a lot of the shenanigans, the crazy trades, the reaches, the back-to-back picks. It's been exciting so far.
I'd say so. Do you have any idea what Vegas might be looking at here at number 12 now that they've traded back into the first round?
Oh, they are tough because, well, it's in their name. They're wild cards. I mean, you go down the list, like, they've got a good collection of guards, even with sending O'Hara off to Seattle, Tyreek and Lindsey. They're a pretty good consummate pair. And then you go to their bigs and you see fellows like Brandon Baylor and Ivy Robbins. So kind of leaning towards a forward here, but I would push on that bet probably.
It's a tough one. Marcus, your thoughts is that their time's wrapping up pretty shortly.
Man, I really don't know because like it just really depends on what they're really asking for because they did make a huge gamble that did work out very well with them making to the finals this year. Um, if they do, considering my little biases a little bit, considering someone that I know very well is on that team, probably be a good idea to stray away from the center position, um, or the big furs in there, and possibly looking into trying to shore up their guard position a little bit. I can certainly see Frederick Alexander being a piece here, or perhaps Corey Bain.
I think the pick is in. Let's jump on down to the stage.
For the 12th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Las Vegas Wildcards have selected Poppy Thompson, a platypus big fur from the University of Eastern Ontario. Next up, the Edmonton Excavators are on the clock.
Okay.
Well, you saved some shenanigans for me, I see.
I have to feel for Kazanishi right now, sitting up there as the 6th ranked player in this draft, seeing multiple centers getting taken that were lower ranked, and now going all the way down to the 23rd ranked player. LVG must have saw something at the combine that they really liked in Poppy.
Yeah, two things here. One, it's Vegas. They love to gamble. And two, like the GM Frankie Gray, she's very much known as someone who picks more based on feel than numbers. So it does seem like fitting for them, but at the same time, I get the reason why this is leaving your mouths a bit agape.
It does. I mean, maybe they want a little bit more flexibility with a big fur possibility, but at the same time, even Leon Alvarez was available still. Now, I will say we could see a run of the final 2 centers in the top 24 come off the board pretty soon. As after this, it's all forwards and guards until you get to the non-top 24s. But let's take a look at what Edmonton might need here. I mean, looking at them, they've locked in at big. I don't see, unfortunately, I don't see them taking the Moth yet.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think at this point, I mean, their starting lineup is essentially set with Fiorella, Zach, Baxter, Nicolay, and Xavier, really. But it's just really because of the clean slate that they have in the bench scenario, since like literally the only player that is available that is not a part of the starting five is Jennifer Kellogg, and we've barely seen them play during their rookie year with the Excavators. So you would imagine that they would probably look into seeing what can they start things off to kind of rebuild that bench.
Correct. I mean, I look at it and think, well, they're probably going to try and bring Lee back, maybe try and bring back Ralston. I know there have been talks there. Even with that, you could still swing at, say, one of the guards available, such as the likes of Frederick Alexander or Corey Bain.
Yeah, I'm lost here, but Edmonton. Yeah, I mean they going to continue the cycle of their guards, honestly, because they've had so many
Yeah,
that they've literally the last couple drafts have all been guards that they've picked up.
yeah, it seems to be the kind of the theme, and it just kind of really goes to show like have they really found that piece to really kind of match with Zach because Zach's here for the long haul.
With that money, I would say so.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be budging. He's going to be budging anytime soon. Now, after this year, there could be a conversation, but that's a free agency for another for next year. But I think right now the big thing is just considering that they are trying to get past the first round. They have been pretty much stuck in first round purgatory for the longest time, and they were very close to do it last year, but so it's just trying to be able to see if they can get a good good enough depth to finally get over that hump because the West isn't easy. Like we all know this. But
the West is a total arms race right now. You see Dakota's offers, Las Vegas's offers. It's a meat grinder.
So it's something to try and see what they do.
I was gonna say the pick is in. Let's jump on down to the stage to see what the Excavators have selected here.
For the 13th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Edmonton Excavators have selected Ayaka Miyuki, a Lynx forward from Nippon Sport Science University. Up next, the Tennessee Moonshiners are on the clock.
Okay, going forward, I think they're going more depth here.
Yeah, I can't really necessarily blame them because their forward depth these past few years have had ups and downs for the most part. I mean, we know Duncan Kuki has had his ups and downs, really debating of whether or not he's be willing to come back this year. Nika McNamara has some ups and downs too. So it just really just trying to find someone who's a little bit younger and probably bringing in some athleticism within the team.
Yeah, not what I thought initially, but I do like this pick quite a bit. It brings a name and a face to the likely small forward position, given the weight, even the weight on this player. But yeah, I think she's going to be a good fit.
And she'll be agile as heck in the post, but again, seeing how well she's able to battle down low, especially how physical the FBA can be. Let's jump on over to Tennessee. Tennessee, you look at them and their first three are locked in, and number 6 on the board is still sitting there. If there's a time and a place, this is the time and the place for Kazanishi to come off the board.
It's hard to say no to.
It really isn't, especially with the fact that they have to make a decision between River and Kierkegaard. I don't think they're going to be able to keep both, in all honesty, especially with the demand that Kierkegaard is getting right now from with the rumors. So I honestly think that this is a really good opportunity for them. I might see them actually go for Leon Alvarez, considering that they can feel either or. If they're only able to bring one of them, you'll be able to slot in both a little bit more with Leon.
Please do not extend the suffering of the moth that is in the green room. Please just allow the moth to get off the board here.
There are 10 other teams after Tennessee. I'm sure one of them will be foaming at the mouth to jump on.
Listen,
Andrea. when
Listen,
they
we
can.
don't need another sad montage of a player sitting in the green room like hours after they were supposed to be taken.
I mean, no offense, this happens every year.
I
just
think
saying.
Andrea is staring at the light and debating whether or not to fly into it. Let's.
I mean, like I might be
that's
retired,
a
but
bit
I'm
dark.
still like a 400-pound polar bear. Let's not get that twisted.
Yeah, you could
I may be
still
old,
pick
but I
me
still
up
got
with
some
one
fighter in
hand,
me.
no problem, and just
Oh
move me
my
out of the
lord.
way.
So let's look beyond the centers because those are the only two centers in the top 24. If they were to go big, it'd have to be one of them. You could
Mhm.
maybe argue if they wanted power forward, they could slip down to like a Turcotte or a Rakhale. But that again at 18 and 21 ranked overall, I'm starting to get a little worried if they're reaching that far down at the 14th pick when there's the 6th rated player by analysts still available.
Yes,
mean,
I definitely
yeah.
see where you're coming from with that for sure. It certainly makes sense. Regardless, I don't know if Kierkegaard's going to feel some type of way if they do decide to go with Kazanishi, but he's a top 10. He's a top 10 like projected pick for a reason, and to just continue to slide down more and more, and Andrea popping off, that can make a lot of these teams look silly. So, do you want to be one of those teams that look silly? When looking back at it, or do you want to be willing to say that, hey, we want to go ahead and try and get that flexibility a little bit and go for Leon in this juncture?
Well, the pick is in. Let's see if the wait is over.
Gonna be good.
For the 14th overall pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Tennessee Moonshiners have selected Andrea Kazanishi, a Smoky Emperor Moth center from Arizona State University. Up next, the San Jose Thrust are on the clock.
And there you go.
Yep.
Well, the wait is over, but now the wait starts anew for Leon. We've said his name a few times as the 10th rated player on the board, the last remaining center in the top 24. I would be shocked if he makes it past, I'm going to say Santa Ana at 18.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really doubt for a second that all of the top 10 will be coming off the board this early, but now we probably can get into the discussion a little bit of some of the on the cusp players as well, too, because we are getting into that area where some teams look beyond what's left of the top 24 and really kind of like look into the trenches and probably see something that not a lot of us have seen throughout this process.
I mean, it is possible, start taking the dip down in the dungeon depths, but at the same time, this is still a pretty high pick,
Mm-hmm.
so you could theoretically trade back a little bit,
We have
get
seen
some more
trades like that.
capital for something else. But I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, considering that what's next on the board being San Jose, it's definitely certainly interesting to see what they want to do next, because they're another team that has majority of their starting lineup locked up outside of their. I guess you can argue they one of the guard positions, as Jose is going to be going into free agency this year. So it just depends on where they want to go with. I know they have decided to go ahead and offer Adam Tavella. I believe that's what the rumors are saying right now when it comes to free agents that could return to San Jose. But there's definitely a lot of questions as to what they're going to do for the point guard position.
Yeah, Merrick, your thoughts?
They've always been kind of nebulous at guard, so I do think that with someone like Corey Bain still on the board or Frederick Alexander, that could help bring some stability to something that's sort of been a more by committee spot, like someone who can really push them to that next level.
Yeah, I mean, would argue Frederick here could be that kind of player. I mean, again, it's a guard, but at the same time, you maybe want to bring someone in who's a leader to kind of lead this team. I mean, obviously, Adam Tavella's, he comes back, I'd be shocked if he didn't. I mean, there's only a couple teams I could see him going to beyond San Jose, maybe Hawaii if they offered, maybe Santa Ana if they offered, but Santa Ana I don't think has any interest in bringing him in.
No, not at all. And considering the fact that I do believe that their forward depth is still somewhat intact as well, I believe because they do have Cassandra Dixon for one more year. Yeah, they're a second round pick, but I think they have done pretty decent as a role player, really, for the most part. And I know Dewitt is still has one more year as well, being that long time vet for the thrust. And it just depends on what they want to do in that regard as well. If they want to say, you know what, we're gonna re uh try and try and shore up our forward depth as well, since a couple of pieces may be walking after this year. So it's certainly a huge talk as to what they want to do, whether it's to just go ahead and try and fill in a young player for that point guard position, or to just try and solidify the forward depth a little bit.
Well, speaking of, the pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage.
For the 15th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the San Jose Thrust have selected Shubio Hoisington, a skunk forward from Atwood University. Up next, the Baltimore is on the clock.
Funny you bring up the cusp players.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely
I
diving
said it.
outside.
I said it. What did I say?
Yeah, you willed it into existence. I mean, I'm a little concerned with how established their forward slots are. I mean, this feels more like a bench role to start with, unless they have some plans between Damian Myers or Adam Tavella if they plan to move on from them. But, maybe they saw something they want to bring in. A great opportunity to learn behind one of the league's vets if Adam does return.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it goes into question as to what they plan on doing with that guard position, of whether they believe that they can bring somebody in free agency, because there are plenty of guards still out there that could potentially um be that formidable piece, or they have a lot of trust in Jose of being able to continue to develop him and watch him grow.
Yeah, well, let's jump on over to Baltimore because we have a lot to talk about with Baltimore, given the departure of Eliza. That puts a lot of questions in mind, and that there's a player on the board I think might be the answer they're looking for. Between Corey Bain or Frederick Alexander, they kind of need a point guard now.
Yeah, they do. I mean, considering that I believe the trade was for Dennis Summers, is and Dennis has kind of been more of a journey than anything else, not really a long term answer, for real. But I guess the question really becomes: is there any guard on the board that could really fit that role really well? Because we are getting to the point where guards are a little bit scarce. Like, there is Frederick Alexander, which fits around the bill, um, to where Baltimore is picking. Heck, you're probably getting like worth higher considering that he's worth 13th, as well as the same player kind of going a little bit of a reach in Joshua Day. But outside of those two, that's it really coming in for. Oh yeah, and Corey Bain as well. Excuse me. So like those three are pretty much what you're gonna be looking into when it comes to having that potential guard.
Yeah, although I will say this, looking for a lead guard around this part of the draft, it definitely not impossible, but it is a bit of an ask.
It's a rarity for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, you could even argue maybe going for small forward here. As you said, Dennis Summers in as point guard, Safira at small shooting guard. Ramsey, some insurance to have behind her. She had some injuries early in her rookie year that, maybe you want to have some insurance policies in play. Obviously, you still have Yasina Celis, who you could argue maybe is that insurance policy, but she's only under 1 more year contract. Tia Tara's locked down at the center post. So I would say a pure forward here would be where I would lean, just because that gives you some flexibility on the power forwards starting possibly, or going into the small forward should an injury come into play. So I would lean towards Turcotte or Rakhale.
Yeah, a forward swing for is kind of what I'm getting from reading the tea leaves here. Someone like Turcotte, I think, could be an interesting fit there.
Yeah,
Well,
this is certainly a possibility.
I see the pick is in. Let's jump on down to the stage.
For the 16th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Baltimore Spirits have selected Frederick Alexander, a Komodo Dragon guard from Clybourne University. Up next, the Arizona Demons are on the clock.
That is definitely a choice, not only for the pick, but also for his outfit tonight. But the Komodo Dragon
Oh, those are some threads.
heading
Yes.
to Baltimore. You might be looking for a possible successor. Again, like you said, Dennis Summers might be on the way out. This might be a gap year for him, kind of help transition the team. But, we could, I will admit, it's been a while. Alaska did play a 3-guard rotation back in the day.
Oh, guys.
Am I bringing back bad memories, Marcus?
Oh, God. Don't remind me.
So
What if I
Lord.
cut in for a minute?
back
I
in
can cut in for a
Marcus, back
minute.
when Marcus weighed less than a truck,
Shut up.
they played a 3-guard setup, and that could see Baltimore being crazy enough to try and bring it back here in the 2020s. I'm sorry,
yeah,
Marcus.
Okay, yeah, whatever. I mean, it is a possibility.
Y'all crazy.
I don't think that Coach Tetriot is very well known for that kind of style a little bit, because she is like rough on the nose type of coach, but it's certainly an interesting opportunity for them to do. I mean, considering the amount of offensive power that Frederick has overall, I can certainly see them be willing to try that out and try and outscore their opponent. We have seen quite a few teams dive into that as well. It's just curious as to how that fit is going to go, because we could probably just see that wanting to try and develop and try and be that pure point guard, because their passing does need some work for sure, and they do need to shore up their defensive stature, especially for a coach like Tetriot. Being so big on the defense is going to be huge. So it's going to be a work in progress for Frederick, especially if he wants to go and start in the beginning of the year.
Oh, no doubt about that. But I kind of see it going one of two ways. Like, either there's going to be a lot of clashing and whatnot, or he's going to be their next leader, like a few years down the road. I'm calling that right now.
Either World War III will happen, or the greatest show on earth will appear. Let's jump on over now to the Arizona Demons, who have been doing some demon magic.
Yes.
As they acquired Eliza from Baltimore. They also acquired Evan Cross from Queens in a sign and trade. Obviously, Kyler Renari is their starting small forward, I think, through those two acquisitions. You have to imagine they go big here, even though they just did draft Orban Dorfer last year.
I mean, it's definitely a possibility, because of the fact that with Chet also going into free agency, there hasn't really been any significant bigs within the Demons that stood out outside of Oakland, obviously. And with some of the major moves that they have, it does make the most sense to really try and solidify that team. So going for Leon could be a potential there. I mean, we have seen teams with very sizable bigs in the post work very, very well with them. I mean, can't really look at any other example outside of outside of the Tides who won last year. So that's a pretty big indication of how well it does. So that could certainly come into fruition if they decide to go Leon here.
I mean, my next bet would be again a pure forward, but Leon makes the most sense. At least getting some depth because they've spent so much money in their backcourt. They can't really afford to go big in their front court offers.
Mm-hmm.
Very true.
Any final thoughts before the pick comes in?
I'm going to agree and say it's a big. I think they got to go big here because it's clear in the backcourt they brought their star Kyler a lot of help. So now they just got to shore up the front.
I agree, and I think the pick is in. Let's head on down to the stage.
For the 17th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Arizona Demons have selected Leon Alvarez, a wildebeest big fur from Saddleback University. Up next, the Santa Ana Spectrums are on the clock.
Well, the last top 24 big is selected.
Mm-hmm.
And it is no shock, and it finally stops a little bit of the slide, all the centers. I think they were a little too numerous this year in the top 24, the top half of the top 24. I could definitely still see one more coming off from the non-top 24 before this round ends, but a good selection, I think, from Arizona. I mean, I hate to say it was kind of telegraphed, but I think they're happy that one landed in their paws here at 17.
Yes, especially with one who already has some skill in the power forward position already and can just slide right on into that position next to Oakland. And it has worked with plenty of these teams as well. As I already mentioned, the Ties. Vegas is also a pretty big example as being the runner-up last year. It's something that people are doing a little bit of a copycat league, as I said, and having to be able to have that partner in the front court could potentially be a surefire way to have one of the top defenses in the league.
Yeah, so let's jump on over now to Santa Ana, who is on the clock for the second time. They traded with Dakota. This was Dakota's pick originally, as they traded it to Santa Ana for some cap for this season, and I think a little bit next year. They've already picked up Coco as their 6th overall pick. What are we thinking here at 18 now that all the centers are off the board? I was kind of expecting them maybe at 6 to take a center, but obviously they completely disregarded my sage advice that they clearly don't pay me for.
It's okay. We still appreciate the advice.
Sure, Marcus.
I mean, yeah, it really just depends on what they're really looking for, really, because like their depth does leave a lot to be desired sometimes. I'm willing to say in this type of scenario, and it just really depends on what they think is kind of the weakest link depth wise.
Yeah, it is. I would lean again towards the bigs. I could see them going outside the top 24, and maybe grabbing a center power forward or maybe even a pure forward that's in this top 24 still. It has a lot of ways they could go with this. I mean, just looking at the top 24 overall, I could see Turcotte going, even if they wanted to stretch down to Gazaki at 24.
Yeah.
Jackson would not be a terrible pickup in my mind here. As again, with the 3 big furs on the board, it comes down to what you're looking for. Jackson 6'10". Rahali's more of a small forward. The Irish Wolfhound's only 6'6". And Turcotte, I would even agree, is even more leaning towards small forward at only 6'4". You know, you're really the squirrel coming out of Canada. Gonna be a little bit. You're looking more for a bench role, I think, at this point of the draft.
Yeah. Like if the round 13, 14 is not what we say is where people start looking beyond the top 24. This like 18, 19, 20 is certainly the case here. And if they do decide to go for bigs, there are a couple that are interesting here. If they want to double dip, which I don't think is necessarily needed.
Well, they didn't double
Considering
dip
that
in the first round. They took Coco. They took a swing for.
yeah, well, yeah. They did take a swing for, my bad. But if they do decide to go for a big here, I can certainly see if they want to really go for more of a hybrid. Keita Rahal or Sakani is possibly some pretty interesting options there if they do want to go into that kind of fruition. But if they do want to just continue to shore up their guard position, I know the guards kind of been they've been kind of doing a little bit of a going in and out for a lot of the guards that have come through, especially now with Adi going into retirement, I believe. It's certainly going to be something that they're going to have to look into as well when it comes to if they want to really shore up the guard position by committee.
I mean, I've heard rumors that Adi is looking for one more season, possibly. But you're right. Maybe looking for the future. I think SAS's pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage and see what the deputy commissioner has to say.
For the 18th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Santa Ana Spectrums have selected Olivier Turcotte, a ginger squirrel forward from Toronto Furry Academy. Next up, the Bangor is on the clock.
The Bangor Tides on the clock, and yes, they did end up going for a big fur. I mean, a forward. I'm not gonna call him a big fur. He's only 6'4". I mean,
Yeah, it's a pretty big
I
stretch
mean,
there.
he's 6'4", but he's definitely a little on the heavier side looking at his
he
weight.
is.
So I could see him barreling through lanes.
He definitely is not, gonna necessarily get bullied, except against if he gets matched up against a 7'4" big fur.
Right. And
That's
also
super
consider
athletic,
this. Consider this as well, that especially in this draft, you're seeing this insurgence of smaller big furs. So in a weird way, he could almost be a part of a very undersized small ball back, like front court.
True, very true. And again, I think we're looking at a bench role to start with for this kind of selection at this point of the draft.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe an emergency starter if needed. But any thoughts on your end, Merrick, about Santa Ana before we jump on over to Bangor? I think you're going to be heading out shortly.
Yes, I will be heading out the door after this, but I just want to say it does seem like they're trying to throw a couple darts, definitely, since they are, sort of rebuilding. They definitely want to get out of that just outside the playoffs territory.
Yeah, I mean they were pretty much the first one eliminated, the last one out of the playoff hunt, unfortunately. So they were on the very edge there, and they have an opportunity to pull themselves into the playoffs potentially if they do some really good draft and some free agent acquisitions. I've heard rumors about them targeting. If they can land those, they might have a good case for being a playoff bound team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a bit of luck there, but it's definitely possible as long as they're maneuvering right.
Exactly. And thank you once again for joining us. Merrick, I hope to see you in the second round and in the future as well.
I mean, if you're happy to have me back for round 2, I will gladly do that.
Well, have a good night. We're going to continue on as we move on to Bangor now, the defending FBA champions.
This is not goodbye. To see you later.
See ya.
Yep. Bangor, the current champs, don't really have a lot to really change up, to be honest with you. I mean, their roster is basically set, and considering how well they have played this year, they can really go anywhere if they want to, with what's left.
I mean, best available is not something they could just take Liam, the highest rated player still on the board. They could take Corey Bain. AMR is their only real free agent right now, and honestly, it's not a terrible idea if they wanted to pick up a guard just in case.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is with the fact that Andrew McDonald Rainbow is going into free agency, and I'm sure that everyone and their mother is calling him in particular to try and see if they can poach him away from Bangor to really kind of leave a pretty big hole for the Tides, but I'm sure that he would love to come back to a championship caliber team that definitely has one more run in them. They still have, as they do have a plethora of people cutting into free agency the year after. That's going to be the big question for Bangor. But right now, the big thing is whether or not they do have enough funds to keep Andrew around, which certainly is the case since majority of their slots have been filled. So would you want to for sure be that confident and say, yeah, we're just gonna go with more of a swing fur that's more forward heavy type in Liam, or just go straight up forward outright and go Syrian?
They definitely have a lot of options, and I mean, again, like you said, they are primed for a back-to-back championship with. If they get AMR back, which they have plenty of cap space to do, we might be seeing them in the finals once again. But I think the pick is in. Let's see who they have selected to join in their title defense.
For the 19th pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Bangor Tides have selected Liam Sager Hendricks, a raccoon swing fur from Ruby Valley College. Next up, the Alaska Arctics are on the clock.
Well, they went with best available, which I do not blame any level. That is,
Nope, not at all. And
bring
they
as
got
much talent in as you can to go to for your title defense.
yep, they got a brother from another mother for Ash. So, but yeah, it's certainly something that is not surprising whatsoever. And again, this goes into their confidence in bringing back AMR to their team to possibly go ahead and go for the first back-to-back champion in a while, very long while. So it, it's been well over, I think, 2 or 3 decades since that happened, and it would be interesting if that were to happen this upcoming year for the Tides.
I mean, it is a fascinating opportunity, but let's jump in because I mean, again, Bangor free agency's done for them besides AMR at this point. I mean, they have I think one other slot they'll be filling with the draft, but Alaska's a team we've
Mhm.
had a great showing this year. I don't think any of us were expecting that big of a run from them.
Yeah, for sure. Being able to make it to the Western Conference Finals, just cutting it just short of trying to overcome the Las Vegas wild cards to make it into the finals for the first time in well over a decade,
Their
or just
history, in
about.
fact, it was
Yeah,
LVG and Alaska had never been to the finals, and now it's just
yeah.
Alaska, I think.
Yep. So now it's just they're trying to get there for the very first time in franchise history, and they're gonna have to try and do whatever they can to make some magic to bring majority of those players back. Because while they do have a lot of cap space available, you can imagine that a lot of it's gonna get picked up by some of these players.
I mean, no doubt. I mean, Rav, I whoever they select here, I feel like they are planning for them to be a bench role and maybe learning behind. Because if you look at their roster, their starting lineup is extremely young. Besides Tyler Conley, pretty much they had 2 drafts ago, they had a buttload of picks, and they really hit on those picks.
Yeah, they did. It's probably one of the best drafts that we've seen in a long time uh for the Arctics. So it's gonna be interesting what they're gonna get from what they have here. I do agree that this is probably more so a player that's more primed to be on the bench, but could potentially like try and fill in case things get a little bit hairy. Um I might be looking Corey Bain here a little bit, considering the fact that they both of their guards are heading into free agency. It depends on how much Rav is demanding and Tex is demanding as well to see what could be that good fit. They do have Foley, I will say they could probably slide Foley in, but I don't think that he is one of the most you would want to depend if a 3-pointer needs to be had there.
Yeah, I'm actually going to slide down and say that they're going to pick a center.
Ooh.
And I'm saying that because we're at the point of the draft where there are no centers left in the top 24, and there's only 5 to 6 center-ish players left, and you always need centers. You always need centers.
Yes.
Alaska will have the 35th pick, and it is definitely possible that there could still be a center on the board there, but I don't see why you would wait when you could pick your favorite center that impressed you from the non-top 24 just to lock them in here at 20.
Yep, and there are a plethora for sure. With about like up to 6 in the non-top 24 in total.
Yep.
And they can go anywhere, but I wouldn't be too surprised if they decide to go for a center here because that is one of the positions that they have lacked last year for sure. And it would be good to be able to have somebody there in case, God forbid, if they bring back Devin Dukes and he ends up going down in some way or another, and that could be a huge blow.
And speaking of, the team has their selection in. Let's go down the stage.
For the 20th pick of the 2024 FBA draft, the Alaska Arctics have selected Kieran O'Reilly, an Irish wolfhound from the Ireland national team. Up next, the Tallahassee Typhoons are on the clock.
Okay, I mean, it's still a big. So
Yep.
I'm not shocked, quote unquote. Uh, it is not a terrible selection at all, especially considering, again, this is a depth pick at this point, and obviously they have Zhu Szechuan, uh, the Yellow Throne Martin on their team, who might be a starter, depending on if they bring back Bruno.
Yeah, I can certainly see that. I mean, it does really come into fruition as the concern still lingers to me with the fact that they don't really have any kind of player that could fill in that center position. Like Rudy has been in the league for a very long time, and if they do end up coming back, I don't really see them filling that role quite as well as they have used to a few years ago. Um, so it just kind of remains to be seen if they're gonna go ahead and try and see if they can sneak a big into free agency because there are quite a few bigs in free agency as well that could fly under the radar this year.
No doubt. I said good selection from them again. I say that because they didn't reach.
Yeah, they didn't.
They didn't reach. One of the best players still on the board. Was ranked 18th, got him at 20. I don't think they're going to be upset about that. We are definitely getting into the point now where I will expect teams to start looking beyond the top 24. So we have some surprises. Being
Yep.
boring is good sometimes, people. You don't have to cause me pain for entertainment.
Yep, you don't have to be like the wild cards or um queens in this kind of scenario. But going into Tallahassee, that could potentially be a team that we'll look into outside of the top 24. They have a lot of pretty big decisions to make, especially when it comes to Aurora Hopkins. There are rumors that they are still trying to get her, but the demand is very, very high, considering like we expect probably an average of 20 plus mil when it comes to the contract that she may be demanding.
I can already tell you, this is a team that I expect to select a uh, outside the top 24 and select a big fur. I don't think you pick a guard here at 21 As
Yeah.
I think if they miss on Hopkins, I think they have better options in free agency,
Yes.
or they could even look on their own team and they have Francis, who they drafted last year. They could slide him to point guard, put Carson Good in at starting shooting guard, or even Clarity Emmers. I think this is a point where you go for your depth, and depth right now, looking at that team, outside of Kenji Frost, Roselia Smoot is the only center on the team that's under contract. And Kenji
Yes.
Frost isn't even a center. So
Yeah. It's certainly going to be, and not to mention the fact that Rosalie Smoot is not getting any younger either. They've been in the league for a very long time. I've been in since I.
she has been since 2013. This is her 12th season.
Yep.
34 years old. You do kind of expect, she's definitely hit her peak, and you would expect within the next 5 years a retirement. And I mean, it's possible she defies expectations and can keep going to 40. It's just we are in Vegas. Tallahassee is in Vegas. They don't need to gamble necessarily so much. Even within mind, having a backup for Kenji Frost would not be a bad idea.
Yeah,
Between
for
the
sure.
two of them, one of them might get hurt. They could stay with the top 24, Jackson Gazaki, but I'm leaning more towards the Gruda, Sandhurst, Rahal portion of the draft.
Yeah, and honestly, I would probably say going for Dabrowski or Weatherby as well. Too, just to have like a pure center, and having to learn behind Smoot is not is something that I would think any big would love to have, considering that she has been a long time um center for a variety of teams, both Tallahassee and Biloxi, like all those years ago. And I certainly think that like being able to draft them and learn and develop behind her could be spell a good things for any player that decides to fall into that.
Yes, and with the clock winding down, I see the commissioner heading to the stage with the pick.
For the 21st round pick of the 2024 FBA draft, the Tallahassee Typhoons have selected Cherry Baxter, a capybara swing fur from Kirby Ditko University. Up next, the Montana Howlers are on the clock.
Okay, they did decide to reach down, and they went with a swing fur, in fact.
I mean,
I think
you
that
know,
I'm going to say that leans to the idea that they might. Again, they avoided potentially. I don't want to say ego damaging Aurora by avoiding to pick a guard here, because they could have gone for Corey.
yeah,
They went with someone who could be a backup for, their small forward, shooting guard,
yeah,
whoever they end up deciding to go with. I'm pretty sure they're going to keep the rookie Francis as the shooting guard, starting shooting guard.
yeah. I think it's kind of one of those best of both worlds a little bit, because you do get somebody that does end up being a I would say probably possibly a replacement for Umechi, because he's not under contract for Tallahassee anymore, and who knows if he decides whether or not that was going to be his last year.
He's retired. He's officially announced it.
Yeah, okay, cool. So yeah, that can be the official replacement right there for Tallahassee, and I would have to say that yeah, you do avoid having to annoy Aurora a little bit, because that is if that is the goal, to bring her back and her to continue to be one of the big faces of the Typhoons along with Martin as well. You can't really go wrong with that.
No, you can't. But let's jump on over to the Montana Howlers.
Whoo! If there was a team that really do need to go ahead and say bump it and dive into outside the top 24 for a big, this might be that team.
I mean, the fact that they had a retirement announced, it is definitely
Yeah.
Uh, Open questions now.
Yes. With St. Croix retiring, St. Croix, excuse me. With St. Croix retiring, that does leave a pretty big hole in the starting center position. They did offer, I believe they offered a contract to Crosby, is what I've been hearing from some of the rumors as well. But like, that's a very short term answer for a long term problem, in my opinion. And so they will have to see if they have to make some noise either in free agency. They do have a decent amount of cap space with 37 million available. So they could potentially go after a bigger name in free agency. But you do need to have some depth as well into it. And they don't really have a lot of big depth outside of Barnaby Dunbrock, really, when it comes to the bigs.
Well, it's interesting. I haven't heard any rumors about the only rumors I heard about Crosby are over in Williamsburg, but perhaps Montana
Oh, yeah.
is playing around with the idea of bringing back Crosby for now that they've lost. They've had to realign their game plan possibly.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I agree. Going with a big would be understandable. Obviously, they have Rodney Blackburn, who I believe they might be interested in bringing back. Like you said, they have Dunbrock at least locked in for one more season. Maybe they could move Roth over to power forward if they absolutely needed to. Again, this is a team that has a lot of questions they can answer,
They
and
do.
I don't think in the draft is where they're going to answer them. Unfortunately, here all the way down with the 22nd pick.
No, not at all. I think that unless the development of whichever player that they pick ends up like wowing everybody, be heavily underestimated with the outside top 24, with guys like Rodley, Jedrick, or Weatherby to really kind of step in and really be that cornerstone big that no one expected to come. Um, it's not really something that I see in fruition at this point, for sure. But they do need like some sort of depth there. That's why I feel like that going outside the top 24 to get that big makes the most sense to me in my eyes. And while they do have some other questions as well when it comes to, I think more in particular, their guard depth, I would say. Certainly, there could be some possibilities to go that route as well, with Corey Bain being like right there, being the best available at this point.
Well, we're going to dive on into the stage and see what the deputy commissioner has to say.
For the 22nd pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Montana Howlers have selected Jackson Kazaki, a Boer forward from Green Ravine University. Up next, the Biloxi Voodoo are on the clock.
Okay, they went with a power forward, which, again, not terribly a bad idea here, considering, again, that's a
Yeah.
question they have to answer. Obviously, I think a center would have been equally valuable here, but going for a top 24 talent is definitely nothing I'm going to scoff at.
Yeah, especially with the fact that like you're still answering the big question of trying to get players that are good at grabbing boards, and that certainly can be the case over there with Jackson. And you can easily slide over Barnaby over to the center position, just outright starting to be that replacement, because you do have him for one more year, and you would love to see if you can extend him even longer for a starting deal.
No doubt, and I mean, again, a bit of fresh legs maybe coming in is what they need. I mean, obviously, this team is very young to start with. If Crosby does leave, I think their average age takes a massive dive towards the
Yes.
the youth.
Yes.
But at the same time, so many free agents is a problem for them after next year. Even Callum and Birdie are under 1 and 2 year contracts respectfully. So how are you going to start preparing to either bring them back or move on from them in free agency? And getting your post situated is a good idea. Again, that's where we've seen teams struggle and where teams have had their best successes when they have a solid post to play with. But Let's jump back into BOV now. Back on the clock.
Yes.
They made a pick earlier for a center, Holly Ann. So I would be shocked if they picked another one. They could double dip.
I mean, it's a possibility. Like their Bigford depth isn't the strongest, really. Like yes, they do have Tyrese for one more year.
They have Harrison York as well.
Yeah, they have Harrison York too. But and Lee Barraquin as well. So it'd be a wild thing for them to do, considering how many bigs that they have available right now for their team. But with the fact that Biloxi has kind of underachieved for these past couple of years, even with some of the big moves that they made, um, anything could really happen. I mean, even if they decide to be like, you know what, we're willing to open to trade one of these guys, since they're both kind of, you can expect it that you're not going to be able to bring back both Lee and Ty back into the fray. So it just really comes the question as to what they feel comfortable with coming into it, because they did pick up a big. I think the big question is to what they want to do with that guard position. Because right now it does signify that they do want to bring Natalie Nevenborg back, but I do think it would be wise for them to get some kind of guard.
Yeah, I was going to say this would be a good opportunity for Corey Bain to come off the board. The Arctic Wolf uh, is a safe pick here, just in case Natalie does end up moving on, going to another team. And if she doesn't go on and move to the other team, you still need some guards on your team. You don't have really any under contract. Obi's the only other one. Uh, you do need some backup guards, as we've seen in terms of
Yes.
injuries. So I think Corey Bain, or even if they wanted to go a little bit further down in the top 24, they still have Joshua Day, even though I put him more as a shooting guard, but still.
Yeah, I mean, for sure.
Well, the 23rd pick is in. Let's cut down to the stage.
For the 23rd pick of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Biloxi Voodoo have selected Corey Bain, an Arctic Wolf guard from the University of Sheeran Islands. Up next, with the final pick of tonight's draft, are the Huntsville Mayors.
Again, nothing dramatic. I'm
No.
not going to read too much into this and say that, oh, they're planning to move on.
No, not at all. I mean, we're at the point where a lot of players usually get picked here are more so um like primary depth pieces, more so than like, all right, we expect you to be a starter game one type of piece. So going for this is not necessarily going to knock anything when it comes to bringing back Natalie. So I don't think that's going to be that big of a worry there. I think that really it was important for them to try to get some more guard depth, because they don't really have a lot of guards signed as you said.
Yeah, and again, there are diamonds in the rough that can be found in these late picks. We've had late first rounders, early second rounders, even undrafted players become starters and dominate all-stars and be leaders on their teams. It's just not what the expectations day one. There are a lot less expectations, and this is where players can come into the league with a lot of weight off their shoulders, but with a big chip on it.
Mm-hmm.
Why were teams willing to take players like Carly Diggs at 4, and why not me?
Yeah, and I guess transitioning into a little bit of the top 24, since we are in the final pick of the first round, we are guaranteed to see at least 2 top 24 players not get picked in the first round. You hate to see it a lot of the times here, but it does happen where, some teams do have more requirements, more so than others, that might not fit the bill at the time. And it really kind of goes into question as to, it's not at fault to any of these players. There's a good chance that they're going to be picked off very, very early in round 2. But it really just depends on what Huntsville wants to do in this scenario. Because again, this is another team that does have their starting lineups set, but they could look into possibly moving on from a couple of players, more so looking more into Travis Buckner, a replacement for him in the long run.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I could definitely see them going with Paige Russell here or Forsett Little. Going for a swing forward with some variability. Have them slide in at that small forward slot if they do plan to move on from him, or even going into the tusk with True Bontragar would be a good opportunity to pick up someone who could learn behind him. And again, there's plenty of forwards down deep in the outside the top 24 if they are looking possibly to move on from Travis Buckner, even though Travis, I think, considering what they got him at contract wise, he might be willing to stick around. And if he sticks around for a low enough price, not the end of the world.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to look at their depth right now. Obviously, they have Jack Baker and Ogun Akayu locked in as their two starting bigs. Tamika
Yes.
Jetson is only under 1 year contract. Outside of her, I don't see any other bigs. So I am going to continue my gamble of saying they are going to go for one of the 6 centers outside the top 24 because Huntsville's next pick will be the 48th pick, and I do not think any of them will be here by then.
No. And I also will have to say that they only have $1.5 million in free agency, so the only thing you can get out of there is a restricted free agent, unfortunately. So I think that getting a big here wouldn't make the most sense if they do not go for a big here. I would be incredibly surprised. I'm not gonna lie to you. I would probably be like, all right, well, you know what? I don't know anything. I'm a big dumb bear that just is just talking into a microphone.
Yeah, and I mean, I would be shocked, and I'm not even gonna throw a dart at any of the 6 because there are plenty of opportunities. I think the pick is in to wrap up the first round.
For our final pick of the first round of the 2024 FBA Draft, the Huntsville has selected Kedar Rahal, Basilosaurus isis Big Fur from Baltimore Bay.
No shocker there, of at least
Not at all.
Marcus, what you and I were thinking.
Yeah, for sure. Like there aren't a lot of big depth pieces that they can really go into. And with the fact that they don't really have any opportunity to bring a lot of their um current bigs that played last year back, you kind of have no choice but to go use that 24th pick for this type of scenario. And now it just goes into what they're going to have to do when it comes to making some kind of deals to try and open up the cap a little bit to possibly get some more depth in the big fur position, because that is like the biggest need right now for the Mayors, and getting that pick is just not a surprise whatsoever.
Not a surprise at all. But that wraps up the first round, and we started off with a lot of craziness, and thankfully everyone took their chill pills after I'd say the 7th pick. We finally kind of calmed down a little bit. It's been a very interesting first round. We have the second round tomorrow where another 24 players will find out their future destination. Any final thoughts, Marcus, before we sign off for the night?
Well, the only thing I have to say is congrats to all of the players that have made it through the first round. And I'm very excited to see what a lot of these players are going to do here with their respective teams. And just because your name wasn't called tonight does not mean that you are out of the running yet. We still got 24 more picks to go, and we will get to that tomorrow.
Yes, thank you all for tuning in and being wonderful. We will see you tomorrow. It's been fun, and I look forward for the craziness